Okay, the camera should go live in five, four, three. Whoops, that's not American Sign Language. Three, two. Pointing at myself. Yeah, I have to have a sense of humor to survive. Um, my name. This is a video to be helping with the GoFundMe plea, and for my current emergency situation, financial emergency situation, everything else is fine. Well, I got a lot of work to do, but that's beside the point. Tasks. Um, Now I have written. See, I talk too much, so I wrote um, little notes to remind me um, about what to focus on. And um, the first one up is a basics about me is that my name is Randolph Garrett. I live in Tumwater, Washington. Used to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, California. Too expensive. Could not get and keep housing going since my mother passed away 20 years ago. So while homeless in Antioch, California, after um, I got evicted because I could not afford the mobile home park rent. So I had to abandon everything, the mobile home, everything, because I was flat broke at the day of the eviction and packed my SUV, a very small, old SUV. The SUV's half my age, and I'm 62. And the packed the SUV, and I had met a friend on Facebook who I thought at the time I could trust. And that's more um, how I got here since California note, which is number 4. I'm deaf, though I speak clearly mostly, although I'm missing some teeth because all they would pay for in California is extractions. I couldn't get anything fixed. I've been on SSI, which currently is $841 a month here in Washington since 2004. I moved here over 4 years ago, um, and okay, deaf, dental subjects, deaf, dental, and I forgot the disclaimer. The first thing to say is I apologize for not having captioning because this is not scripted. I think um, YouTube will auto caption well enough, but I don't trust them. As it said, again, I'm want going all over the place. Um, I have had a spinal injury back in 1992, which at the time I was employed in the tech industry. Worked for 3 different companies at 3 different times. All went out of business, leaving me unemployed. And not very long after I was laid off of the last company, the job of which I dearly loved, doing software quality assurance. Um, that was when the back injury occurred. And again, that's not an about me. Deaf, bad eyesight, um, big thing where it's a factor in how I got to where I am now is that I have autism. I have an Asperger's syndrome diagnosis from 2003, and that put into together all the past, most of the past um, psychological diagnoses into one big ball of wax. Uh, on top of the autism, I have attention deficit disorder, um, um, I'm starting to get arthritis, but fortunately it's very minor, just a shoulder and knee. Yeah, if it was knee per a X-ray. It's mild, so it's not that big an issue. Um, Currently unemployed, trying to get um, that side of my life started again, whether it's self-employment or regular employment. Um, when let's see, I was living with my parents until um, my parents passed away. Dad in Christmas 99, Christmas 1999, and Mom in 2002, September 12th, 2002. And she left me a mere pittance of an inheritance at the time. And um, unfortunately, as I put it, that's the start of my financial and housing problems, is that my brother got most of Mom's money. I got stuck with the bills. So the money went, what little I inherited went away real fast. I was supposed to be getting most of the estate and just some money to my brother, but unfortunately he pulled a con job on her, which he had been doing since I forgot, we lost the family house um, not too long after the job at Escan in 94. The job was lost in 94. The house we lost in 96. We moved to a rented mobile home. And Dad passed away Christmas 99. Mom passed away 2002. And ever since then, I've been I'd been staying in share rentals, trying to keep a roof over my head, motels and share rentals and so forth, from Sonoma County, California. Made the mistake of moving to Marin County, California. You can't afford to live there. Nobody can afford to live there. Um, and then to the East Bay as I was trying to get closer to the tech jobs I used to do and the mass transit system in the San Francisco Bay Area. The mass transit north of the Golden Gate Bridge essentially is buses. Fortunately, now in the ferry across the bay. And they fortunately, after I moved away, added a commute train that runs from I think it's a Tiburon ferry up north, terminates Cloverdale, I think it is. I missed that because I used to be a model railroader and a rail fan, but all that hot action was after I moved away. A lot of action going on. I miss Sonoma County, beautiful place, and all that sort of mumbo jumbo about it. Mumbo jumbo things about it. Um, so um, I'm on SSI. So oh, I'm obese, by the way. You should notice. Uh, always have been. Keep trying to lose weight, and the best I can do is to hold it down. And right now, hovering above 350. Twice I made it down to 300 pounds. Once while homeless in Marin County, and once while I was living in Antioch, California, when I got involved with what are called the fairies, which are bands of anthropomorphic animals, think Disney characters and like that. And so I put my foot down out of jealousy of the others having fun, and I started making my own fair suits, as they're called, costumes, and did pretty good. And not too long before the eviction, I tried to turn it into a self-employment business, but just couldn't get the money fast enough. So I concentrated on conventional employment and going to college. That was what it was. So um, went to college and was a client at California Department of Rehabilitation, as I had been off and on for decades. And a lot of help the California one was. Um, so unfortunately, I had to bring in rent out a room to replace the roommate I had, who was essentially paying rent. I was his live-in caretaker, and he passed away. I inherited the mobile home, so I got title on it. Although it doesn't count as inheritance, the logic was a real estate squatters law thing, and I never passed it by a lawyer because I don't have money to pay for a lawyer. Um, you know, yeah, yeah. I think that's covering big events. Um, the last, um, uh, let's see, I rented out a room to a guy who completely screwed me under, and I couldn't pay rent in the mobile home park. So I got evicted, and he had broke all the rules in the park, and it was a nightmare. And with my autism, I made the mistake of trusting him. The guy was a full-blown narcissist, as my therapist suggested, and he's also was a disbarred lawyer for, as I found out when I was in the law library, working researching again evictions because I've been evicted before. And excuse me. Um, so while homeless, after that eviction, all I had was what was in my SUV because I had no money for a storage unit, trailers, nothing. Although I didn't even think about getting a roof rack carrier to put on the roof of the truck, SUV. I said truck to a friend, and he said pickup. That's an autism thing to kind of obsess meaning the words. Um, uh, so while homeless, I decided to take up on an online friend's um, suggestion to rent a room in his home, which is a mobile home on a manufactured housing on a foundation. I'm still stuck with the term mobile home, which I don't find to be have negative connotations to me. Although most people think of trailers, but those are RVs. And it's the RVs that evolved into mobile homes. First the single wides, and then put them on jack stands and put them permanent. You left them in the park, but at least they were more mobile. You just hook up a hitch and a vehicle that can carry, that tow the weight and so forth. But after they went to double wides, it became very expensive to move a mobile home, and I just had no money to move my mobile home, manufactured housing, and so forth. I was just totally financially ruined, and um, so I came to Washington on a whim, trusting this guy I met on Facebook that I knew for years. That's the second trusting mistake I made. The first was, well, actually, maybe been plenty in my life. The first was the guy I rented the room out to in my old mobile home. And the second was this guy I met on Facebook, the classic. I met a guy on Facebook. He said, "Come to where I live and I'll take care of you," blah, blah, blah. So I came to Washington, and while he was in Southern California, but it had turned out he was in Southern California because he's gay and he's married to a guy, and the guy had been jailed and charged and was on parole and could not leave Southern California. So he, as the husband or whatever they call each other, married gay folk, um, would not leave Southern California. So the entire time I was here in Washington at that um, mobile home until he got home 2 years after I'd moved in. It's hard to remember the timing, but I think it was just 2 years. Um, he and I didn't get along together very well, but I had full run of the house before then. But he took advantage of me and had me go for free, pick up appliances and receive and assemble furniture and carpeting being put down and all the other renovations and repairs to the mobile home, and which I didn't have the horse sense to not do so. I didn't know I was being taken advantage of. Um, he, um, after he moved back, and by the way, during all that time I've been paying rent, um, not a huge amount, but rent nonetheless. But it was that manufactured housing was on an extremely bad private road, and I swear it's the worst private road with multiple um, dwellings on it in all of the state of Washington. It was really, really, really bad. Steep sections and like that. Very, very rocky, boulders and so forth. You practically had to have a four-wheel drive to get to the place. But my uh, ex-friend didn't believe me when I said how bad the road was. Believe me, it was bad. Um, uh, See, I get distracted. He turned out to be a really bad person. I'm trying not to swear. And him and his husband. So when they came home, they started harassing me to death. I tried to get help from Adult Protective Services, but they really couldn't help. He then threatened to have the cops arrest me for trespassing if I didn't move out in 20 days from his announcement that he wanted to evict me. And I tried to work it out with the Mason County Sheriff as to could he do that, because I've been told in the past, no, landlords can't do that. But as I found out, yes, they can. They maybe even don't even have to lie to the police to just call the cops and say he's trespassing, arrest him, get him out of here, and they can do that. They won't, or they generally normally don't refuse those calls. So I had to get out of there and packed up everything in the storage because I had some money at that point and could afford a storage unit. And let's see, I, I forgot on top of rent, I paid utilities and so forth on that mobile home in the town of Triton, Washington, up near the border of Mason County and Jefferson County. And it was the Mason County Sheriff that didn't help. Um, so he made an illegal eviction because this happened after the pandemic was well underway and it was supposed to be illegal to evict a person. But as I found out, you can lie to the cops or maybe even not have to lie, and they'll still chase you off the property just by paying rent. I had receipts and everything. Um, it was so ridiculous. Um, and I became homeless and spent over a year homeless in Shelton, Washington. I was lucky to get into what used to be a winter shelter and general um, help services. Went to full time because of the pandemic, so was able to stay there year round and was there for over a year trying to get housing. Finally did, but I couldn't get it in Mason in Shelton, California, Shelton, Washington. Still doing California. Um, and finally got. There was actually at the same time two. Well, actually, I had one share rental lined up at the time of the eviction, but the guy, because of the pandemic, had to rent the room to a relative, so that was canceled out. So, though I had a place lined up, it fell through. Um, but at the time I was in Shelton, there were actually two, and one was a guy um, from Bremerton, Washington, who had a duplex there. I don't know if he owned the entire duplex or just half of it. Um, I never knew the right questions to ask as a disability, as I call it, that plagued me all my life was thinking of to ask a question in the first place and then what to ask on the spot. And it looked good, and I was getting that all lined up, getting started on the paperwork, but the people that were helping me in finding housing were suspicious of the guy, and that at the same time, the mental health program that I belong to, shortening BHR, Behavioral Health Resources, which is based essentially in Olympia and has offices in various places, except Tumwater. They have this place. This is owned by BHR, this apartment building. Uh, so they got me into the first apartment they said they had open that was in this building that I didn't know about at the time, but they said they had an apartment, and I asked, "Is it upstairs?" And I said, "Yes." So I had to turn that down because I just can't do stairs very well. I have vertigo. It's another thing I forgot to mention about me. And so going up and down stairs is very hazardous. And unfortunately, I have not had much exercise, so I've gotten a bit weak. I've got actually weak, well, not weaker, but was pretty weak at the time that I finally got this apartment, which is downstairs and it's handicap accessible. Fortunately, I'm not a wheelchair user, but at the time I was a walker user because I was in really bad shape. Um, I have, because of the spinal injury, a pinched right leg nerve that makes standing, walking for long periods of times, and so forth very painful, very difficult, and eventually the leg starts to give out from under me. Um, so I had to use the walker to get around, and unfortunately, having nobody to help me move, much as I tried to find somebody to help me move from the storage units to the apartment, I moved everything in myself, and that nearly got me bedridden at that point, and continued to try to recover. Um, Not only had I gone through the grief of losing all my possessions while here in Washington, I also, all the other trauma. So I have PTSD-like condition, whatever to call it, from the trauma, and it's been going on for a long time. Mom and I didn't get along together very well, but I was stuck living with her because I just couldn't. I had a hard time getting and keeping jobs. Um, so, kind of covering the employment status on my notes, which I'm currently still unemployed. Been trying to get a job since moving here to Washington over 4 years ago. Tried to get into subsidized housing, and it was while in the shelter in Shelton that I finally got this subsidized unit here in Tumwater, Washington, which is just outside of Olympia, Washington. And uh, there are many good things about this apartment, and oddly, my first apartment that I've lived in, um, let alone rented. Um, uh, but the other advantage is just down the road a short distance, but it's still too far for me to walk, is a gigantic grocery store, Fred Meyer, and lots of other shopping. But outside of a Subway and a couple other shops, there's no fast food on this side of the freeway. On the other side of Interstate 5, which comes right behind the building, of course, it's well insulated, but with my deafness, I wouldn't hear traffic anyway. Um, the fast food joints are on the other side, but I rarely eat out, very rarely. Always trying to be careful with money, especially when I have what I call a zero budget. When Governor Schwarzenegger of California cut all the assistance money he could, he reduced SSI, everything. It was a nightmare, and so at the time I had a zero budget, meaning I had no money to just spend whatever I wanted to, including eating out, and could barely get any groceries and so forth. Um, which, by the way, California SSI excludes you from getting food stamps, and that ironically had happened at the start of when Schwarzenegger took over, and um, started when I started getting SSI, and everybody was clueless about it. But you would go to the food stamp people, try to get food stamps. They kept saying, no, you can't, but they didn't say why. Of course, I was being deaf, nearly deaf, I should say. I still have some residual hearing in both ears as a birth defect. Dad and grandma had it. Um, I can hear some things with the help of hearing aids, which unfortunately, one is in bad shape and the other one's completely broken, and I'm trying to get replacements, but um, the usual problem between my GP doctor and the hearing aid dispenser, and trying to get prescriptions and all that. They were not an audiologist. I was spoiled back in Santa Rosa, California. The hearing aid dispenser was also an audiologist, and so I always was able to, just just go right in and essentially get a prescription, get the hearing aids, and walk out, so to speak. Takes a long time. Um, but now, been trying since I moved here over 4 years ago to get new hearing aids, and it's in terrible shape, and they're already several years old. God, it's hard to not go into everything that's gone wrong in my life. It's really hard. It's a lot. Um, anyway. Um, oh, by the way, a little bit of background. High school graduate, And I went to Heald Business and Technical College in Santa Rosa, Runner Park, California. Um, Unfortunately, they later went out of business, which made the diploma worthless, essentially. So I had almost no documentation of my technology experience, and I didn't do a good job of keeping in touch with past um, coworkers and such. So I had nobody that I could use as a reference, and that made things difficult. And I'm still having problems with trying to get references. Um, so if you're following any of that, I know it's difficult to follow what I say and so forth. Sometimes talking too fast, sometimes not talking clearly. I had a voice class in college 22 years ago, and that helped me to be able to speak more clearly. And I still swear I had speech therapy as a little kid because I knew a speech therapist. And so uh, back in Santa Rosa, California. Um, but one of the things that was suggested is probably because I not only cranked the television volume to full, but I put my ear near it so I could hear what was being said with hearing aids on. I picked up speaking clearly from that as much as anything. Uh, um, but by the way, when I listen to music or television or whatever, it's headphones only. But the volume's quite loud these days for me to hear much of anything. And I now fully reliant on captioning. Um, she's going through all the, oh, I thought of this, I thought of that, about my past stuff, and I'm trying to push that aside. So I got this apartment. I'm going to try to keep to recent events. Because I think all that background stuff is now clear-ish. Um, is when I moved into this apartment, the upstairs resident, because this apartment building that's owned by BHR is for residents with mental illness and my autism and depression. I was diagnosed with depression back in high school. Uh, Definitely qualifies me here to live here. um, so the upstairs neighbor makes a lot of noise except when somebody's downstairs, except me, um, comes to visit or um, like recording this video and so forth. But the guy will do it overnight, all night long, fairly frequently. So it was very difficult getting a good night's sleep here, nearly impossible. Um, so um, uh, that made things very difficult. And because of the trauma from all those evictions and homelessness and everything like that, and health problems, I continued to be essentially out of commission until about 2 months or so ago, when I finally started becoming active and started trying to get a job, getting my home office working. I've always had one, and I always obsessed about record keeping and everything since Heald College. And had since since California had amassed some technology, and I actually got caught up in one thing that I was back in California, I thought that the programming language that I was pretty good, I can't say fluent in, but fairly fluent. There's some aspects of it I didn't piddle around with. Was actually becoming more popular. I thought it had been replaced by some of the more modern programming languages and so forth. But it actually was becoming slightly more popular. When I read about that, and it was because of embedded systems programming, as it's called, which is people who develop tech for cell phones and other wireless devices and so on, all sorts of things. um, I realized that's a career focus that I could finally focus on. I never had focus. Um, when I graduated high school, I started going focusing on the automotive career. Got a certificate, but didn't get the degree because my parents couldn't afford it and were demanding I get a job. Mom was demanding I get a job immediately. Dad was kind of out of it. He had a back injury in '69, but was one of the best mechanics in San Francisco, where he met my mother, who was a bookkeeper. And so after the um, auto attempt to get into the auto career field, I moved on to bookkeeping, mom's side of things. They weren't telling me what to do in terms of career. Just get a job yesterday. So mom would say. Dad was kind of out of it. But we repaired and restored Ramblers, and it's one of the businesses I wish I could get back into business doing. Is Randy's Rambler Restorations shop, and I even got a building picked out and everything. No money for anything. So I do get food stamps, by the way. That's the money situations. I get SSI 841 a month currently in 2022, and am trying to be self-employed. I used to do eBay sales and computer rehabilitation and Soho consulting work, computer consulting, on and on and on. So the other self-employment business potential business titles is also R.D. Garrett Western Wear on eBay. I used to buy and sell Western wear quite a bit, usually trying to get something my size, a good fit or whatever. But still, getting bargains and turning around and actually make some money on it. Um, but have been struggling with that self-employment until 2+ months ago. So now I'm selling on eBay as much as I can um, on that C programming on embedded systems note of career choices. While I was living up in Triton, I got somehow, because I kept in touch with not with the individuals, but with the tech industry and all that, I wound up getting free hardware, which really shocked me at the time. Free computer, electrical parts, and all that sort of stuff. Because I had electronics in high school, and I was in the enhanced learning program, so I learned automotive, electronics, and so forth, and electronic assembly, and jack of all trades. And as unfortunately one employer said, expert in none. And I'm suspected of savantism, but I can't find a specific spike as to an abnormal talent. It's just working with any and all technologies. Um, but the stuff I got led to the career choice of C programming on embedded systems, but I haven't done any C programming um, since moving to Washington, as I have not even found access to write and uh, upload or flash install software onto the all those embedded all those microprocessors and all that other tech, or sensor technology and everything. It's a neat big box full of technology, and I'm not going to sell that because that would end my career choice. Um, but I haven't taken time to get back into it. I keep trying to, um, but haven't. But I have a ton of. I have a habit of printing out ebooks and manuals and like that. So I have a ton of binders full of all the research and technical information, very technical information on um, with microcontrollers, sensors, and so forth. Um, and the plan was to make a complete system for the home, for the deaf and hard of hearing, that helps us with everything from the doorbell um, system, which I fortunately the management bought me the doorbell flasher, so I have that to signal somebody's at the front door, because this place did not come with doorbells. But there was a complete integrated system with the plan. It was everything that, in essence, I needed to work as a hearing impaired person in a home, to have a home going like that. It still was focused on personal, and it also then there would be a million variations and components put together with it. So I'd also be the plans were also to make it work in for a small office environment and all sorts of things like that. All that possibility. Um, the system would be built personal first, and actually be built for myself, but try to put in as much as possible. But keep in mind the home, where you have all that stuff like uh, through sound recognition, it could recognize when the alerts go off on your washer and dryer that it's finished, tea kettles whistling, um, some big loud noise, and all sorts of features, tons of features to help out, because we really need help in a lot of things, except for captioning software. Um, that would actually have to be bought and integrated, and I just don't ever have the money, and try to leave the captioning stuff to be separate, because it's usually not always on the videos. Unfortunately, barely even 1%, let alone tenth of 1% of all videos these days are captioned, and especially intentionally captioned. Like YouTube is an automatic captioning, and it's terrible. Um, so the business name for the computer consulting work I was doing, as I was before my mother passed away, also doing Soho computer consulting, small office, home office, because I ran into a guy in a bookstore and talked tech with him, and he said he needed some help, and that's got me my first client, which then led to a second client, and but my mother demanded all my time, so that business never took off the ground, and so that business name um, was Randolph Garrett Consulting, is RDG Computer Consulting. Now I had splurged on some credit card money and a small loan on a filing, finally, after all these decades of needing to, of the DBA filing, is doing business as, so I could actually use that business title legally. Let's see, there were also a lot of other possible self-employment businesses I could get going, but that trying to make official RDG computer consulting, RDG being my initials, and um, try to resurrect a business because I could start and run a business with all the technical side, both of technology and financial accounting, writing business proposals, stuff like that. Um, which I haven't written a business proposal for my RDG computer consulting. I really got to get that done one of these years. So, unfortunately, um, trying to survive financially here and not getting much sleep, my head has not been very clear. It's pretty clear now today because I got some sleep last night and yesterday and the day before. Um, but unfortunately, um, I got, the first three credit cards were okay. I could afford payments, etc. But for some stupid reason, not thinking clearly, I got two conventional credit cards and two what I call store cards or store credit cards, king size and finger hut, um, at the same time. And not too long after that, a what I call a paycheck loan. And I have no idea what I was thinking. It was bad enough that four credit card payments hitting at once, not thinking very clearly, but also I knew how bad news those paycheck loans are, as they're called. And I got it under the guise of self-employment. And I do have some, the money coming in from eBay sales and like that slowly, as I'm supposed to be getting the listings done today, for example, Monday through Friday until till bedtime. I try to get listings on eBay. Um, uh, all that hit and has now exceeded my income, no matter how much I get practically, by quite a bit. And I'm in a process that I did the August budget, as I'm always budgeting, um, and payments exceed income by a huge amount. And I'm trying to handle and recover from that as best I can, but the budget leaves me that if I get gas for my SUV so I can get around to jobs and appointments and grocery shopping and everything I need to do because I can't physically walk a distance and there's no bus stop on here. I got at this apartment. I was sure there'd be a bus going along in front of it. Nope. They go out, turn that way, go over there, back that way. I think there's a bus that goes down that section on the other side of the freeway. So it's a very long walk to get to the bus stops, and there's no parking right in the area. So taking regular bus gets exhausting. So I'm heavily justified in keeping my SUV running, which somehow it still is. It's very high mileage, but somehow it still is. Go figure. Um, so I'm not able to pay um, on the debts, the payday loan, the loan, is an automatic withdrawal from my checking account, which one of the things to try to get a handle on things would be to um, start a new checking account. God, 40 minutes, 50 minutes of talking. Sorry, folks. Um, so I need money, um, possibly, hopefully, to pay off that payday loan through Makwa Finance, MAKWA, and uh, some, if not most, of the credit cards. There would be two I would keep, and I keep them paid down, so I'd have emergency money to fix something on the SUV when it needs to be fixed. Um, One of them, the Capital One card, also has shopping incentives. Um, that's not a cashback card. I keep reading about cashback cards, um, but I guess the Capital One's a cashback card. Yeah. Um, so I'm not able to even pay rent for August 1st. Um, I'm trying to get a job, haven't been able to. Um, Trying to get self employment going, but I'm trying to do too many things at once. It's, I get so distracted so easily. And uh, I got to remember when I cash out on the first of the month, um, to cash out, I should say, actually, get cash, which I normally don't do, and open a new checking account, um, because I probably will have to do that. Um, Move the SSI to it, which is real difficult to do for some reason. Um, uh, haven't checked if the SSI office is around here is open for inside visits or anything anymore. I got to remember to add that to my to-do list, is to open a new checking account, and then I could stop pay payments on things, uh, on the old checking account, as much as I want to keep it alive. If I don't get this wishful $5,000 GoFundMe money, I'll have to let that account go sour, and everything's going to go into debt collections and all that. I don't even have money, and I won't have money to file for bankruptcy. I'm trying to find out about. You're supposed to be able to do it yourself for free online somehow. Um, and other attempts to survive financially, but I need money now to pay rent. I'm trying to get assistance from the agencies to pay the utilities. Now the building utilities, apartment utilities, come with the apartment rent, which is subsidized. Um, so I'm paying only for phone and internet and cellular service. Um, I tell you, that free cell phone service, they give you the crummiest, slowest cell phone, and it was actually costing me quite a bit of money because using its map system instead of printed maps that I used to use, um, to do the GPS bit between where I'm at to a business, kept sending me to the wrong place. It found um, Office Depot, and I took the exit, but instead of the Office Depot that turned out to be right there, it sent me way down to, I think the town's name is Yelm, out in the middle of nowhere. And I got there. There's no Office Depot. There was a place that sold some office supplies, I guess. I think it was a Fred May. No, QVC. That's the name. A QVC store, which I think sells some office supply stores like this one does here. The Fred Mayer does here, but it's not Office Depot. And so I then used it and found to go back and found them because I needed ink for my inkjet printer, but it's just so insanely expensive. I have a laser printer that I use for most everything because it's cheaper per page, black and white laser. Um, but what I need help, and now I'm constantly coming up with ideas all the time, so I'm constantly distracted. And one is I've got to take lessons in personal finance. I have business accounting degree, but not personal finance training or education beyond the business type. So I keep spreadsheets going for the checkbook and the checkbook balance and what I call predictory stuff, which is not really budgeting, but all the automatic charges go through, so I can keep track of that. So not only the purchases that are occurred, but also um, the automatic charges that will go through, which I try to reduce as much as possible. Uh, and getting control of that's been a real funny thing. Is that oftentimes you do some simple action and then all of a sudden they start charging money. So I've talked people to death for an hour now, and I need help. This is an urgent need. Um, so some way I could file bankruptcy, or if I could get enough to survive while I continue trying to get a job and pursue self-employment at the same time. So far, the employers are not biting to all my applications. We have this great quit off, but I never really had the luxury of quitting because I didn't like the job. Unfortunately, I think I did quit some jobs, but one was by accident. I left a note that that was it for the night. I'm going home, and they took it as I quit the job. Left home early. It was a real bad job. Um, but with all this great quit off stuff by these spoiled brats these days that have such an easy time getting a job that they can quit one job and get another. That's the thing is, if I ever quit a job, that meant I was not going to get an employment right away. Despite all that employee shortage BS, except for the obvious ones. And unfortunately, a lot of those job openings are work I can't do, which is stand for long periods of time, heavy lifting, and hearing customers. And even though there's like a deaf barista at Starbucks, um, I hate putting the employer through the trying to tolerate my problems with my deafness. And the deaf barista had a little pointing menu printout thing so people can point what they wanted and all that, and presumably yes, no's, and all that if they didn't know sign language. And I tried to learn sign language, took the class 5 times, failed 5 times, just never could get fluent enough in American Sign Language. I had nobody to practice with. Um, that fills in another about me thing. So I'm trying to get a job, lots of job openings, but finding what I can do is a nightmare. So at this point, I think I've covered everything too well. So I hope that the viewer um, has an idea about it. Funny thing is, I've had photography and video photography experience in the past. So I have a nice camera and do not only pictures for the eBay sales, but artistic pictures and whatever. I also know how to work behind the scenes, and so it's awkward for me to do a video like this because I'm used to being behind the camera. In this case, I'm sitting in front of the camera. What a concept! So thank you for listening, and I uh, help me. Because of the lack of friends and all that, I have almost no contacts and so forth, and I've tried to get a word out as best I can, but I'm sort of hampered with my autism and lack of friends and trying to get friends and so forth. So that's all I dare say at this point. I'm sorry I went too much depth, but that's how complicated this situation is that I got myself into. So thank you for your time, and I hope you can help spread the word. Get in contact with me wherever. Um, so